Good evening, everyone, and welcome to IKYA Live, world news from the spiritual perspective, and your premier news program for practical spiritual advice in your everyday life. My name is Andy, and I work as operations manager here at the IKYA Center in Oslo, Norway. We are very pleased to have you with us. Both are in our live studio audience here at the center and all of you on YouTube Live. IKYA Live is a news program, I think, unlike any other in that we take a relevant topic of the day and we unpack it and pull it apart to look at the spiritual principles that are at play. Spiritual teacher Aaya assists us to lift our consciousness and see what's happening in the world around us from that higher perspective. So it is also different in that it's a conversation. IKYA Live is really about all of us students of spirituality seeking to engage with the teacher and ask directly, what is going on? How can we better study in our own lives? So please do engage and write in your comments and questions in the chat below. We'll also take questions from the live audience. And be sure to like and share tonight's episode and follow us on all the social media channels. And then we're going to get started by putting to IKYA the situation that we're in. As we all know, the human world is complex and challenging. And the idea, the principle of love is in a way equally complex and challenging. And we humans struggle to understand what it is, how to practice it, how to be in it. So we thought, connected with St. Valentine's Day that just passed on Friday, that tonight would be a great opportunity to go into this perhaps most central of all spiritual principles, which is love. But, our world is also dealing with an increasing level of negativity, cynicism, and dare we say hate. So we pose the question tonight, how do we love in a world that is increasingly full of hate? IKYA?
It is very simple and also very difficult at the same time. First, we need to understand that we're talking about two separate concepts. Spiritual love and divine love is what we may refer to as unconditional love. That is what just is. It's the only true state of anything. And we'll get back to that. And then we have conditional love, which is more of what we experience as humans. And that is not constant. And this is the big challenge, because often we need to experience conditional love before we're able to allow ourselves to experience unconditional love. Now, in this world and in this kind of civilization, we have to learn to move past that, because we have to remember, number one, that this planet is, it's a school. This is a classroom, and we're all here to study. And we're here to study things we don't understand and things that we haven't done before, right? And it means that we're doing weird stuff all the time. We're failing all the time, which is learning. But as karma, as the process, an expansion of consciousness happens on this planet, people are confronted more. There will be more conflicts, not less. It gets more complicated because of the confrontation and the interaction between different forms of karma. You would think when there is expansion of consciousness that would naturally lead to everyone, loving each other. It doesn't happen. Not in this world, not on kind of what we refer to as a horizontal level, which is the worlds of manifestation. We are all here to work on our karma. And, you can just imagine in your own process, your own life, when the volume is higher, it doesn't mean that you automatically go to more love. It means that you will have to work out the distance between where you stand and love. The distance between where you stand and higher insight, more balance, more harmony, more healing. That's how you heal, not by having your karma removed, but by you dissolving your karma, dissolving your resistance. And where we are at, in this civilization currently, is that the volume and the pace of karmic work for all of us has increased. So it means that when we're more confronted, more triggered, we will point our finger more. Because that's always how it starts. When we have resistance to something, when we're in denial, and that's basically what karma is. And we're triggered, we always, as humans, believe that, oh, that person did something to me. We don't understand spiritually that, oh, I was mirrored. Right? So until we get to that point, we will point our fingers. We will be in conflict. We will attack. So we experience that civilization has more hate, fear, stress, and anxiety than ever, which makes it very difficult to experience that harmony and that love. So we'll start with, what is really going on now, and how can we move into a higher state? Now, I always go back to human evolution and to nature and how we operate as biology, because it's so important in spiritual work that we understand more of the body, more of the life form within, and all the different genetic programs and how our brains work and psychology and all of that. Now, when there is increased stress, that means that your body, your brain, is assuming that you're fighting for your life, that there is something dangerous happening. It goes for all sorts of fear and anxiety, right? And there's plenty of it in this world. Not only will you point your finger, right? Because you have to find the source of what is dangerous. It's a change in your brain that's happening, and your brain actually becomes more binary. It means that you see things more black and white. In a situation of war, you're either a friend or an enemy, right? There's life or death. And if you're hungry, it's food or something that cannot be eaten. It can, be poison. So everything becomes very black and white. So the more stressed you are, the more you will move into this mindset of either or. You're with me or against me. You either agree with me or you are an enemy. And it also means in that state that everything becomes transactional. All your relationships become transactional because you have to survive, meaning that you have to strategize to figure out how can I use resources and people so I may survive, right? So when we're stressed and when we're fearful, we move into a state of emergency. And our brain changes how it operates. And this is, for many people, their permanent state. Because this is the civilization we live in at this moment. The challenge is that love is full spectrum. And when we're balanced, when we're in harmony, most people will find themselves sometimes to be in a wider spectrum, and sometimes they will move into the binary whenever they're stressed or afraid. But when it becomes a permanent thing, it's more difficult, right? So in the binary state, all nuances disappear. And love is full of nuances. So in the binary state, your heart closes. And with it, no empathy. And if you look at our current civilization, and human behavior, we're losing empathy. Because everyone's an enemy, right? Because unless they agree with you, it's the big them. It's a big they. And you have to hate them because they're out to destroy your life or destroy your country, destroy whatever you think is valuable. We don't have nuances. So it becomes more easy to hate. It becomes more easy to be fearful because the moment your brain has decided that this is dangerous, we have to go binary, almost everyone will be an enemy. Almost everything happening, you will be convinced that it's against you. And you have to fight for your life. And this is where we are. But there are ways to work with it. But it's important that we understand that we're all under an enormous influence of fear and stress. And most of you can feel it on a daily basis. And when it's this much, it will change our behavior. It will change our personalities. And we will become more fearful, more anxious, and more hateful. We will have less patience with other people. Because in a state of emergency, we are supposed to become very self-centered. How else are we supposed to survive? Right? If you want to survive and your biology is kind of hardwired to when there is stress and danger, you are supposed to step up. And then you have to cut the line. You will not say, well, you first, I can just wait here. No, if there's an emergency, if you can die, your biology is supposed to trigger you into being the most selfish bastard you can possibly be, because that increases your chance of survival. When you have survived, well, then you can be generous, but not when you're fighting for your life. So for most of us, our biology is now kind of like in the experience of fighting for its life. So we become more, bipolar in how we move. Everything is black and white. We can see this in politics. We can see it everywhere, and it closes the heart. Right? So, as I said, in a state of love, you see nuances, which makes it more easy to understand other people, their motivation. You can say, well, sure, that's their thing. But in a binary world, you don't. And we're all influenced by this at this point. And also, as I've talked extensively about, when we become more self-centered, we want everything to be tailored to our emotions because it tells us that I'm right. The ultimate power, always the highest point of any hierarchy, is who get to decide what reality is. So when you can have it the way you want it to be, your biology says, well, I'm on the top of the mountain. I'm a very important person, which will make you even more self-centered. So the more we exist in this consumer mindset, the more we feel that our self-centeredness is kind of right because it's proven that, oh, I am right because I get what I want. And it gives a false sense of security, a false sense of, okay, I will survive because everybody's running around to satisfy my feelings, my stories, and my needs. And then that becomes a normal. In that state, we never feel love. Right? So we have pretty much geared our own civilization to close the heart, to lose love. And it's not good. We can see what's happening in the world. We can see what's happening, with people around us. And maybe you can see it in yourself too. But this is because we're dealing with conditional love. And the thing is, conditional love is really interesting because we have so many stories about what that means. But it's an energy and a state where we often feel that everything is in place. Now, back in the day, when we look at how humans have behaved throughout history, love was, for most of the time, expressed. You showed your love more than you were interested in receiving it. It was considered, you were a person of honor when you showed your love towards your family for instance, and you would do that through whatever you were doing. When you were living up to expectations, when you exceeded those expectations or your duties, right? Doing your very best for other people would show them that you loved them. You wouldn't necessarily tell them, I love you, but you would show it. So throughout history, humans have had a lot of actions symbolizing love. Like feeding your children is one thing. Again, your duties, the expectations others have towards you, taking responsibility, being a provider, a protector, nurturer, all of these things, and taking care of each other. Gifts, all of these things, meaning that we created a kind of love language of different symbols. So we would do this for each other. And that has changed us when it comes to conditional love, because it means that we all now have stories and expectations that, love means that I get something. Love means that someone will give me food, protect me, provide, all of that, because that was the love language. But throughout history, we were all more interested in giving, because we existed in contexts where we all took care of each other's survival, right? In small tribes, in smaller groups, in small societies, everyone knows everyone, and everyone will do their best to do their duties and to show that you can rely on me. All right, that would be perceived as love, and love would be the state where you feel, okay, we belong. I can rely on you, but you can rely on me too. In today's society, that is gone. We're all confused. We all feel that it's difficult to find our way. Where's my place? Right? In the old days, finding your place would be the most important platform for you to show your love and to receive love, because then you knew your value, you knew what you were doing, and people would give you feedback, right? So if you did a great job, you would get recognition and support and all of that. So that would also be part of the love language. But when we have no idea today, people try all sorts of things. We become more addicted to the idea of confirmation, because we don't get natural love anymore. Because that's just when it's seamless, right? You do what you do, and it helps the tribe in their survival, and then you get what they do and produce, and it's just very seamless. And love is that glue. It's that recognition where we see each other, right? So when we have no idea how to be that person, and we don't get that type of feedback anymore, we just crave that, feedback, that mirroring. So we want confirmation, because that's part of the love language. So in many ways, we're today trying to reverse engineer the symbols of love and trying then to build the experience of love. And it never works for anyone, because you cannot reverse engineer love. So it's not that, if you get a confirmation, then it's a sign that I'm loved. By trying to manipulate the world around you, for instance, social media, looking at a lot of these influencers, what they need is a hug, right? What they need is love. And they seek confirmation because they crave it, right? So throughout history, we have lived in context where love was natural and where we kind of shared the language through which we expressed our love, and we're able to receive it through respect, through caring, through being there, right? Through being accountable, all of these things. So today, when we feel that I'm fighting for my life, I need someone to show me that I'm valuable. And then we all go around waiting for that to happen, and because it's not, we become even more fearful. We feel that we don't have our place. We become even more binary. And then we start to demand that I need these symbols. I need these manifestations genetically that throughout evolution would show me that I'm loved, that I have my place. So we're trying to shop around, and we become demanding and entitled for that, not understanding that it's love that we seek. It's not confirmation. It's not more stuff. Although when you are very loved, you would receive things as gifts from others, right? And now we demand it. We want stuff, right? And then the transaction mind, when we buy stuff, we get this little ooh, because genetically we're saying, I'm popular. You bought it yourself. It doesn't work. So we're trying to look at kind of the genetic love language and manipulate it to create a false sense of love. And when that's not working, we become even more desperate. So this conditional love is very difficult for us humans. And especially now, and we bring this into our relationships, right? Because when we don't feel that we belong, we don't feel that, shouldn't this work? Shouldn't love just be there? Yes, it should. But our civilization is off the rails. And we're behaving very, very strangely. So we have this kind of craving. We know inside of us also that the conditional love should just be there. It's a natural part. When I'm a functional human being, other people will experience me as loving, and I will also feel loved. That's a sign that, we are together in this. And because we have this craving, but now we're looking for the symbols, right? Because genetically, we relate to the symbols and the manifestations. We don't understand love anymore. We bring that into our relationships. So we have a lot of expectations, a lot of requirements, and we have in the back of our mind a list of what we think we deserve and how it needs to be and for us to feel loved. And for instance, when we feel insecure in this world, for men and women, for instance, it could be that for survival reasons, they will be more attracted to men with money and with status and with power, right? Because that's how you survive. That will secure you. But it doesn't mean that it's loving, because those men are often extremely self-centered, right? So we get confused because genetically we are instructed to seek what will help us survive through these symbols. But it also means that we think that someone else is to provide that sense of security, being seen, being understood, provided for. We want things, we want that, because we are in a state of emergency. And then, because of it, we create this, or I deserve it. We don't look at, what are you bringing in? What makes you so special that everyone should just throw their stuff at you? And yet, many people, when they go into a relationship, this is what they're looking for. But the challenge is they're both looking for that. So they both want of each other to give them confirmation, to give them stuff, to give them the symbols. And that's very difficult. Often today, we bring in a sense of, I need something, but I don't even understand it. But then we expect that other person to magically understand our needs. And we feel insulted when that person had no idea what we're talking about because we're not able to describe our needs ourselves. So we have all these expectations coming from a love language that we mostly have lost. And we're all looking for a place in the world. And we want the relationship to be that place. But it will not be that place unless we feel love. And then we just want to feel loved. We don't understand that, we have to bring it. We have to give it because we're in so much stress and fear that we're not feeling it. And then we say, you don't make me feel loved. You don't make me feel this or that, as if the other person is responsible for your feelings. We're back to the transactional part. I am here and I'm all that, so that's my payment. Give me the right feelings. It's your job to make me feel a certain way. And this has largely become accepted in how we behave in relationships. And a lot of relationship therapists are talking about these different expectations and how we should it's just bullshit. We make ourselves miserable. So the whole arena of conditional love is completely out of balance in our society. And it's a difficult kind of arena to navigate. And you will never, ever be satisfied. And you will never, ever feel that true sense of love through the means of conditional love. It will be bursts. It will be moments. But they will come and go. And you will feel empty. So we need to find a different strategy, and that's also what we will be exploring tonight.
So we have a question from Germany on YouTube. What is happening to our physical heart when we close our heart energetically? And how then is heart health connected to everything you're talking about tonight?
As medical science is moving forward, they have discovered that we have literal brain cells all over the body. Not literally all over the body, but we have them in organs and where there are major functions. But this also means that the heart is capable of having experiences as a separate entity from the brain. For real. So, in different spiritual traditions, we've always known this. We've known that there is consciousness in many parts of the body. And the heart has its separate kind of brain, its separate mind. And now they've seen it's real. So those brain cells in the heart are very much connected to how you experience love. So it's the center. Spiritually, it's the center of connectedness and full spectrum presence and being. But when we close the heart, we literally close the heart. You can also see that it's when we have a lot of stress, for instance, this is known, you can get a heart attack. Things can happen to the heart based on both your stress levels, fear levels, and in the other direction, of course, the more harmony you're in, the more love you're in, the more the heart will expand. Meaning that it will also pump differently, the rhythm may be differently. And when you are in harmony and in alignment, the heart connects to the brain. And it means that when one can see that there is a influence in the brain from the heart, and you can actually see it, the brain waves will change when the heart is in balance. So the activity in the brain and how the brain operates will be influenced from the heart when it's what we call open, when it's active also spiritually. And when the brain is influenced from the heart, that's also when you feel, it's a very different state, but if you have experiences, it's the state where you feel that you are present and you have no needs and you're in acceptance and you can feel that kind of your whole body and your whole being is one. So the calibration between the brain and the heart is important. And it really influences not just your consciousness, but your whole experience also of being human. So closing the heart will lower your consciousness and make you more binary, which means, as we're black and white, it is difficult to navigate the world. Most of life is to be found in the nuances. If you want to understand something, you cannot be black and white. Right? So it's that. The state of the heart is always generous. It's always patient. It's always giving. When we're in fear, we're out of time, right? We have no patience and we have no understanding because it's a matter of doing whatever it takes. So the closed heart will make you more brutal and not a very good version of yourself. And so it's important today that we have to learn how to open our hearts again, individually and collectively, because the closed heart is now the norm.
Yes, I just wanted to offer that there's been a really interesting manifestation of exactly the development you're talking about, kind of at the global level, where the relationship between Europe and the United States since World War II has really been one mostly in the heart, standing in solidarity, supporting each other, thriving together. And it's very interesting that just over the weekend, the United States flipped the script and basically said, look, if we're going to be in partnership with Europe, we need something from you. We want to be able to extract resources or whatever. It's really fascinating to see that, in a way, it seems like this development has come a little bit from like the ground up, because a lot of government and diplomacy and that kind of thing has really tried to keep things at more the heart level, and now it's gotten to the point where this transactional, very conditional love is reaching also the upper echelons across the world. And I just think it's very interesting timing that it happened just before we were going to do tonight's episode. Just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, it's important that we see that the heart in our civilization is not completely closed. Empathy is gone. And our civilization used to be taking care of people. Now, people are being seen as the problem. And it's always about how can corporations exploit people more? How can we distrust more? How can we make people feel so desperate that they're willing to do anything just to stay alive? Right? So the intention of our civilization now is not a good one. And there will be a long phase of human history. As I've said many times, we're entering the endarkenment. And that has been kind of planned. It's when you look at cycles from the outside, when you're able to zoom out and you can see evolution, you can see movements of consciousness and how this life form is on a journey and how this whole planet is pulsating and changing and learning. The endarkenment is a phase that has been, it's been very clear that the human civilization has chosen that path. And that was clear a long time ago. But now we're in the beginning of it. And it will be a long tunnel, but one will also emerge from it. But that will be more than a century away. So yes, it's important that we look at the heart ourselves and understand that we are now being manipulated to become even more disconnected. Because when we understand that the heart is the place, the center of connectedness and sense of connectedness, when you feel connected to someone through love, you feel a togetherness, right? And through that, you will have a natural need to be there for that individual, to share, to take care of, to uplift, right? And when you see, like, love is naturally giving. This is also why I said throughout human history, love has been a state where you give. But think of when you are in love, you never think of how much you can take from that person. It's always about how much can you give. How can you show your love? How can you show your appreciation? And it's natural. And then both do that, right? And that's also why it's so magical. The opposite happens when the heart closes. And then it's all about taking. Then it's all about strategizing, because it's that generosity is not natural anymore. So we need to look at this in ourselves, and also say, especially when it comes to our own relationships. Most people today think of what they can get out of it, you know? And also see that when someone feels, well, you know, he doesn't appreciate me, so I'm moving on. That, it's got nothing to do with love. And when you're in a spiritual path, you have to learn to kind of snap out of that. You have to look at our civilization, whatever you've learned about relationships, and say, this is not how it's done. When we are in a natural state of connectedness, we want to give. And think of when that was the natural state of humans. It's the natural state of all life, of plants, animals, birds, insects, whatever it is. It is a recognition that we're all part of the same life, part of the same organism. And when you go to indigenous people, right, in all cultures, and also the ones who are still kind of alive to today, you can see that they experience themselves as part of life, as part of nature, and they have that respect, right? So it's a natural love, natural connectedness, where they include themselves, but there's a natural kind of giving and sharing. And among most indigenous people, when they go hunting, it's always been a natural process of listening to nature and, you know, praying or doing whatever rituals they're into, and for nature to give them and share the animal that, you know, that nature can provide for them to survive. And it's a state of gratitude and harmony and connectedness. So when we feel less connected, when the heart closes, it closes our sense of connectedness. And what happens then is that we get depressed, because we feel disenfranchised. Depression and also addictions are mostly the result of a state of disconnectedness. For instance, one has done experiments where they've taken rats. You know, it's an interesting thing because we're exactly the same. And they've placed them in kind of individual cages. And when they're offered, you know, clean water or water lined with heroin or cocaine, they always choose the water lined with drugs, and they kill themselves. When the same rats or the same type of rats are placed in an environment where they have a natural kind of social interaction and where they have a great time, you know, being themselves, is that they're very family-oriented social animals. And they're offered the same. Not a single one will choose the drug kind of lined water. So when they're disconnected, 100% of the rats will self-medicate themselves to death. When they're in the natural, social, kind of loving environment, nobody does it. And it's the same thing for us. So when we close the heart, we will get depressed, because depression is a state of, you know, acute disconnectedness. And self-medication is then something that happens in the areas of ourselves where we feel that we're not part of something. And we're less and less connected, right? We spend more time on, our gadgets or by ourselves. And, in Japan, it's completely normal for people to not talk with anyone, maybe for weeks. In extreme cases, they can go to restaurants by themselves, not talk to anyone. They can go to work. They don't have a lot of social interaction. Of course, some people do, but they are kind of in the forefront of that, and they don't have relationships the same way fewer people do. And we're seeing the same tendencies here. And that extreme sense of disconnectedness, because we're closing the heart, will drive us into self-medication instead. And this is what we're doing as humans. So understand that when we are in depression self-medication, it's really the result of a closed heart, that we feel that we're not in kind of our natural connectedness. And when I've seen also people struggling with addictions, when they're placed in a loving environment, often, for instance, and I've been taking part in this myself, helping people with different addictions, like moving to small communities, like it's almost like a cliche, but small communities where everybody knows everyone, right? And then they're held accountable. What they do matters. It's being seen, right? You feel part of something and it begins to open the heart. So yes, our heart center and the physical heart is indeed important. And when you close your heart, you will feel more disconnected and you will feel more desperate, meaning that you want the symbols of love because you're not able to feel it anymore through natural connectedness, right? So when we are connected and in a state of love, we become naturally generous, and so do other people. And that is the natural state of being human, right? So this current civilization, we're doing a lot of very harmful things to ourselves.
Yes, we have a question in the audience.
Yes. The balance between giving and self-sacrificing, can you address that? Because with religion and
Right.
with how self-centered we are.
Now, self-sacrifice is not giving. It's that simple. And just think about it. If you think of like giving as coming from a place of love, right? Sacrifice normally comes from a place of self-hatred. Why else would you behave that way? Because the big part of love is respect. And it doesn't show a lot of self-respect to be in that, sacrificing yourself. You want to prove a point. It's a power game. And it's not love. Love includes everyone, and that means you too. So when we're doing all of these things, that, it's not full spectrum, right? But it's back to the love language that was developed genetically. Giving, like for a mother, for instance, that was how she could show her love. And then just doing it, but with a closed heart, right? You are then creating the symbols of love, but you're not feeling it, and that will always destroy you. And it will not be received as love because it's not, right? Because it's often, when you feel that you're sacrificing yourself, you want everyone to know how much you've sacrificed, and you want people to feel bad because they've forced you into that situation, right? It's not love at all. It's a highly transactional state. And you want to prove that, look how much I'm paying, I'm getting nothing back. So you're creating suffering in yourself, and you're also creating suffering in other people. Love includes everyone and everything in the most natural way. This is also, and in smaller communities, there is more of that. Not that every small community is loving, but that when people feel they have their place, where they're seen. When the community sort of works, they relate to each other. Everyone feels kind of like, they, back to like checks and balances. There is some of that. People will hold you accountable. Who you are, your behavior, you can't get away with kind of nonsense. You can't get away with not being part of it and being productive, as we can in this society, right? And often in our society, many people will try to test boundaries because they want someone to stop them. When we're stopped, it's basically the feeling of, there is authority, there is safety. Because a boundary means that I am safe within these boundaries. And you can see a lot of people who are kind of like pushing the boundaries in different ways. It can also be young people breaking the law and all that. They want society to show them where the wall is, where the fence is. And instead, we focus on their emotions, right? Because when there is a wall, it means that it will also protect me, right? So you see a lot of young people, if they're able to meet people, and often men, with a natural authority. Some men have more of that kind of alpha energy. Often these kind of young delinquents will feel safe. And they'll, right, that's where it is. And they will calm down, right? It's basically understanding that we as humans, we're looking for all of this. As a love is complex. And part of the collective love language will also be safety. It will be authority. It will be responsibility. All of these things. So when someone like stops them, it may trigger an experience of love, right? So it's our current civilization is doing the opposite in so many ways, and creating more and more disconnect, making us more binary and hateful and fearful, and it's not stopping anytime soon.
I have a follow-up. The religion that Jesus sacrificed, this believing that that's the ultimate way of love.
Yeah.
It's so deep ingrained that it's hard to recognize. So thank you so much.
Yes, but just addressing that, since you brought it up, is I think that whole story is a terrible one, and of course, religious narratives are often built with a certain purpose. Because that type of story can indeed make people think that I should sacrifice. Who benefits, right? And it was, for instance, when we look at how the Catholic Church was built, right? Controlling as much money as possible, getting as much wealth, and then people sacrificing everything, including their life, and giving away everything to the church. It was part of that narrative. Right? And of course there are versions of the stories around Jesus where he didn't die on a cross at all. And that whole story was taken from other religions, because there were plenty of them where the Savior were, sacrificing himself, seeing that as a good thing. But, when you look at the Old Testament, there are plenty of stories where they sacrificed this and that and sacrificed people. Remember that was a normal practice. So we can look at that today and say, whoa, that's a big thing. But back in the day, they would sacrifice humans, to make sure that the sun came up and to have a better crop, stuff like that. So sacrificing animals and humans were normal, because human life did not have much of a value, right? You would have 8 kids and 3 would survive, and, death was everywhere, and you went to war and people died. So, most people died. Eventually we all died, but most people and children would die. So then sacrifice was, in a way to try to stall the gods, because obviously when people died, it was because somebody wanted it, right? So to satisfy those gods, well, here's a human, enjoy your lunch and let us live a little more. So it was a natural way of thinking. So the idea of sacrifice was so kind of normal. It was a way to kind of stall the insatiable bloodthirst of all the gods. Because remember that when humans developed their stories about gods, it was mostly to win wars. They were all war entities to give strength to the warriors so they could win over the enemy. So they were all bloodthirsty. And then you would have to kill the enemy also to satisfy your god. So that gave you extra oomph, right? So they're all bloodthirsty. And when you look at the Christian God, that came from nomads, right? And when you're a nomad, you have to fight, right? So yeah, it was a warrior God. So that's also why when you look at the Old Testament, it was a very aggressive God. Very, and the whole narrative was, of course, stitched together from different religions and paths. That's what you did, right? And look at modern spirituality today when it's doing the same. Taking a myth from here and there, and then to stitch it together and create a new thing. Humans do that. There's nothing wrong with it as long as it can inspire good behavior. But understand also in the time where these narratives, because that whole dying on the cross thing is a very old story, from times where human sacrifice was just the norm, right? So it would be strange if he didn't sacrifice himself. People would question that, because that was to be expected. Everyone was supposed to give their life, right? So that was the norm. So think of all soldiers were told that you have to sacrifice your life. Everyone would be expected to sacrifice themselves for something. So any religious figure with any credibility would have to sacrifice his life, right? So when we look at it today, not so much, right? Also because it's a very different type of narrative, and it's not very loving, right? So when something is of love, it includes everything. I always say that in true spiritual work, sacrifice is never necessary, because it's an ecosystem, it's an organism. And it's not like when you live, you take from someone else. Expansion of consciousness means you expand, which means the universe will expand. So spiritually, there is no competition. There's only competition when it comes to survival, which shows the level of most religions. They're there to instruct people on how to survive horizontally. It's not truly about spiritual awakening.
Yes, we have a question on YouTube. I've been watching a lot what is happening in America the past 3 years. Is it fair to say that the stress people experience through social media with all the lies and disinformation is causing the same sort of reaction in the body that a real threat would give you? And then again, that, reaction driving people to act and say all the crazy stuff that they do. Could you comment on that?
Yes, you're absolutely right. As that we live in a constant state of biological emergency because we accumulate so much stress, so much fear, so much anxiety, that our brains believe that I could die in a moment. I'm fighting for my life. The thing is, as I've also explained, when we have enough stress and enough fear, the brain will always say, well, there has to be a reason. Just like back in the day, which means most of human evolution, your intuition and your fear and anxiety were supposed to protect you. So if you're in the jungle and all of a sudden you feel there's someone here, you get that goosebumps, ooh, there's something. Most likely there would be something dangerous. It could be an animal or an enemy or something, right? And those who had those types of reactions, they obviously survived. The ones who didn't died out. So it became part of how we respond to things. So it means that when we feel stress, it's not like the brain goes, I'm just making it up. It's like there's a reason, there's a danger, right? And if we can't see it, we have to make it up. There's like, I'm sure there is an animal behind there. And then you go home to your group, I barely survived this attack. It almost attacked me. And everyone will be more kind of anxious, and it will sharpen their attention. So creating these stories of fear, trying to identify the source of fear and stress has always been important, because you cannot go around feeling stressed for no reason, right? Because it's supposed to be a reaction to something, and you're supposed to be obsessed about trying to find the source. So when we're today manipulated in so many ways, through disconnectedness, being disenfranchised, all of these things, creating more fear and anxiety in our minds, there are reasons for this. And there are enemies. And where are they? So we begin making up stories about they, about them, about the enemies that is trying to destroy, because our reactions would imply that there is something dangerous happening. And when we can identify the enemy, it can be other people, right? And as you see in the States, it could be like trans people wanting to go to the bathroom, right? It's insane. But that becomes, aha, that's the source of my fear. They are destroying my life because I can feel it. Because we are destroying our own life through the fear and anxiety and how, those feelings and behaviors, that's how we destroy our life. But then we blame it on something because we're desperate to find the outer cause. So whenever we do that, we feel a sense of relief. And this is also part of why, conspiracy theories and all that, because we cannot stop until we understand. And when we feel, stress all over, we feel it's more systemic. So then it's more about them and the big conspiracy, how they are working to, to control and to do this, to do that, and everything, because that will justify how we can feel so much fear and anxiety all the time. It's a natural part of our biology. But yes, this is happening, and it's happening like all over the world at this point. And we have to figure out how to work our way out of this, and I'll get back to that in a moment.
Well, actually, this question from YouTube might help you get started with it, because from Germany we have a question of how can we then build stronger families again when so many families are now separated? Do you have any practical ideas on that?
I have a lot of practical advice on this. I also, when it comes to relationships, we have to stop projecting expectations and needs, because that is poison. It will kill any relationship. Other people do not exist to satisfy your needs, your healing, you wanting this or that, in order for you to feel loved. It's not their job. So the moment we can set people free from our own expectations and understand that I am the only responsible person for my well-being, for my healing, for my state, for my emotions, for all of that. And this is what we need to learn. And understand that we have so much more of these false needs today because we exist out of context. We don't feel connected, right? And then we are craving all these symbols, right? So understand that back in time, people could have less and there would be wars and this or that, but they would still feel more love naturally. They would still feel more connected, right? So we live in a state of emergency. So, so when we bring this into the relationships, it never ends well. So we have to, number one, pull back and say, I will not project any of my expectations. And they say, well, what are they for then? Because we've now told ourselves the story that the purpose of a relationship is to satisfy my need for feeling important, for being seen, for finding my place in the world, right? So we actually believe that now. And that's an awful starting point. So, the only way to heal this is to start in the other end. We have to start with divine love. We have to start with what we can refer to as unconditional love, the vertical love. And that is something else entirely, because it's a state. It's not something you do. It's not oxytocin. It's a state of consciousness. As is, like, the state of love is a state of active connectedness, togetherness, and feeling that, everything is in place. When you have experienced divine love, and you can often do that, for instance, in meditation, spiritual practices, and also where you practice love, it's natural to think and feel that I don't need anything. I don't have to do anything because you're filled. That is the state of the heart, right? And this is also why I see when people have that connectedness, and this is part of this like small, sidestep here, but one has looked at indigenous people and said, like, why haven't they evolved more? When you are in a state of connectedness, you don't need anything. And often when you look at these kind of smaller groups, these smaller, micro-civilizations, they may operate as one organism, right? It's the love, the respect, the togetherness is so strong that it's actually stopped them from evolving their culture, because they're already in a state where they have everything. We invent whenever we feel we don't have everything. So there's a tipping point where society becomes so big that people start feeling disconnected. That's when innovation begins. So it's good for innovation, bad for us. So now, taking a step back and understanding that love is not being filled. If you think of all the symbols, all the symbols of love, right? When we don't feel connected, we want all of that because we have this craving and we want stuff. The more stuff, the better. The more confirmation, the better. But it's a black hole. So it means that we're trying to hoard as much as possible, and it still doesn't help. So being filled is not the same as being in a state of love. Love is the opposite. It's a state where you don't need anything. So if you find that you need, you're not in a state of love. So what we can look at is how to practice, because we need to practice love. Because we have completely lost the natural ability to love. That is now the default state in most people. And just think of it as any muscle, any talent, right? We have to practice to get better at it. But you have to understand that you are the only sustainable source of love in your life. You're supposed to be the channel. You're not supposed to seek love, you're supposed to bring love. You cannot find love in the world. You can find manifestations and situations and whatever it is that will make you feel love for a short time. But being in the state of the heart, being able to experience love as a permanent state, it can only come through you. And that's also the difference between conditional and unconditional love. When you learn how to work with unconditional love, it's a permanent state. It does not require anything. So you begin to naturally show your love. You become a more loving person. And you bring love into everything you do because it's just natural. You don't seek it anymore. It relaxes everything, right? But you have to practice. It doesn't just happen. And the thing is that when we believe in this kind of symbols and manifestations telling the story of love, we then begin to think that love is a reaction. As that when you do this, then I feel loved, or when you do this, I don't feel loved. So love becomes a reaction based on how much oxytocin is being released in your brain. And then we decide that that is what love is. It's only there when I react to something, and that means that you depend on other people. And because they are the provider of whatever it is that you can react to, you make them responsible. Right? You don't make me feel loved. It's grotesque. But this is what we're doing to each other, and it's so stupid. But it means that we see love as a reaction. And it's not a reaction. You can have the brain chemicals that can be associated with experiencing love. But it's not love itself. You have to learn to channel it. You have to learn that it's not a reaction. That is something else. It might be nice, but it's conditional. The only sustainable source is you. It's your own channel. It's you learning to channel. And for you to kind of practice the heart, practice being in the state of love until it becomes permanent. When you think it's a reaction, you believe that it will just happen. You will find love, right? Why haven't I found love? You know, it's a stupid question. Stop it. Because you will never find it. You will find bursts. Right? But it's that. When we think it's a reaction, we're looking for whatever can trigger it. And then it will be gone. And we will be dependent on that. And what is that equivalent to? Self-medication. Right? I need a fix. So we become addicted to our own brain chemicals, and we see love as part of it. And we use the same strategies. And we get addicted to those people or situations, whatever, that can give us these small bursts of something that can resemble love. Right? It's like watching, cat videos on YouTube or whatever, or puppies. It says, ooh, we get that little burst. But it's better than nothing. But we have to learn from scratch now how to do it. So, you have to become extremely clear that love is not a reaction. It will not be caused by something. It will not be due to someone doing something or a thing or a manifestation. It's a state of consciousness. It's something that you can channel for no reason at all. And it becomes permanent. But it requires you to work on your heart center, in whatever way possible, and learn how to be in a state of love. So, how do we do that? And it's basically looking at the different things you can do to bring you into that state. I would say both conditional and unconditional. But as long as you are doing it, you are practicing it, you will be practicing those muscles. Right? You will be practicing that talent. And over time, you will kind of know how to move into that state at will. Most people are able to do it as a reaction. Right? And understand that when we react to something, we are still producing the state of reaction ourselves. It's not that some person outside of us is going into our brain and messing with our glands. We are doing it. So it basically means that we're using certain situations or people or whatever it is to allow ourselves to move into specific states. So it means that you don't need those whatever it is. That's the story. Because if you say, I need this to happen to allow myself to feel this thing. Yeah, you're doing it by yourself. This is just the story you've told yourself. This has to happen first. but you are doing it autonomously. So, most people hopefully love their kids, and they can be filled instantly with love. When their child needs something, or, when they're proud, or whether, whatever the child needs, love should be the first impulse. And for most people, that happens, right? So we are able to switch or flip that switch. We can learn to do the same with divine love. So, now, when we establish that love is not a reaction, and you're practicing that, number 2 is try to relive every moment in life where you have felt a strong sense of love. And try to then see the connectedness. You can do this in meditation, when you go to sleep, or when you just reflect. Try to see that whenever you felt a strong love, it's always been a state of connectedness. Because that is what love is. And then try to use your memories, because this is how we work in meditation, for instance, with visualization. It's, understanding that when you are trying to envision something, when you try to relive, and when we kind of relive or just create an experience, we often call that perceptualization, because you're using all your senses to create an experience in your own mind. But when you do that and relive, you can kind of tune into the same experience. You can feel the same thing. So whatever experience you've had in life where you feel love, try to recall and try to relive. And just try to say, what is this energy? What is this state? Begin to explore what is this, not just feeling, but sensation in your body. How does your mind change? What thoughts change? How do you look at situations in life when you are in that energy, right? And when you've kind of figured out how to be in that energy, try to amplify it. To say, okay, this is what's happening. What if I try to, increase it, make it stronger? Right? It could be, for instance, if you focus on your children, and you feel that parental love, that's the starting point. You can try to feel this energy in this state. It's like, what is this? Right? And then try to amplify it by trying to give more love, be in a stronger state of love. It can also be with your pets, right? Same thing. It could be like experience you've had out in nature, like wherever you felt the strong sense of connectedness, where you give or where at, so practice that. The more you are in this energy, the more you will be able to channel, right? It will become permanent, because when the kind of brain of the heart is activated, it will start to flow by itself. So that's one technique. We have some more questions.
Hello. Can you describe the ideal and realistic sort of a relationship, how that would look like if both practice unconditional love to each other? I can't really see a relationship in a form.
Well, it's not that complicated, really. It's just, if we think of it from a human perspective, I think when we realize that we are with someone who's not us, and we find that interesting. Often in relationships, we use ourselves as the template of everything right and good. And from that perspective, whatever the other person is doing that is not in accordance to that is wrong. And we get triggered and we react to that as if it's a competition of who's right. Again, the ultimate power is who gets to decide what reality is. So, when there is unconditional love, it's not connected to anything, because love is not a prize. It's not something that is deserved. And when we turn it into reaction, we think, well, when you do that, I feel this way, right? So it becomes a game where, well, you don't deserve my love because you haven't paid for it, you haven't done the right thing. That is not love. It's emotions and all of that, but it's not love. So when we're able to let go of all of those games and simply understand that love has got nothing to do with deserving it or not, it's got not about right or wrong, it is simply a state. And when two individuals feel a strong sense of connectedness, and in that state is naturally kind of generous, naturally listening, naturally patient, naturally respectful, because it's just a natural behavior, right? That does not mean that karma does not exist, because we're all here to study. And it sometimes means that the mirroring will be even worse or even clearer. So, you know, when you meet that, you may experience even more conflict in you, and that can be played out. But it means that there is more space, there is more patience, and there is more room for honesty and truth, and for both to understand that, well, you know, we have the shared journey, but we're also in individual journeys, and, you know, so it's naturally more kind of caring and without demands, without expectations. Because it's that when we feel that I need someone else to make me whole, right? It becomes a demand, and we feel insulted when it's not happening, and it will never happen. So it's learning to just let go and let the other person be that person. Remember that again, when we are in a state of emergency, having demands and forcing the world around us to behave the way we want to will show us that, yeah, you will survive. Because when other people comply, it means that you are higher up in the hierarchy, meaning that, you know, as I say, power is deciding what reality is. And when you get to decide what reality is, your stress levels will diminish. So subconsciously we know that when we're in a lot of stress, we begin giving orders. Then we can then completely lose it when someone does something we don't like, because we need the proof that I'm in charge, right? Because that is how you elevate your status, meaning that I'm not, you know, I'm not the one being eaten today because I'm the strongest one, right? So when you climb up, you will be higher up, right? So we have all of these mechanisms. So this is also why the more anxious we feel, the more stress and fear we have, we will be more controlling in the relationship. And it's all of that. When there is more divine love, we just like set each other free. And it gives room for more kind of true karmic work than those types of kind of competition fights, because they're not productive at all. So again, it doesn't mean that there's always harmony, because harmony means that you will still hear where you're not in harmony even more sharply, right? But there is more growth, there is more the intention of giving each other space and to promote more of that connectedness, more of that love, and to see each other grow will be more the focus than what I can get out of it type of thing. Hmm? Oh, okay. We were waiting for you. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, right. Okay, now, back to practices. It's important to give love. And it's because the state of love is naturally giving. So when we practice to give that without sacrifice, showing generosity and patience and all of that, and kindness for no reason at all. Just because you want to express love. That is an important practice. So, in religions, that often be kind of charitable work. It's the act of giving without receiving anything. It's to break the state of transaction, right? Because when you give, and you give from the heart, you know that you're just, taking care of things, and you do it because you love. When you love, you have a natural instinct to give, right? Whenever you do something that you love, you don't expect to get anything back. For instance, if you love, being in your garden and take care of the plants, interacting with the garden will fill you with this state of connectedness and love. It's not like you expect your plants to do anything for you. They're just there, right? And you get to express your love, and you get to kind of feel that connectedness and togetherness. So practice giving. Practice kind of taking care of others without sacrifice. Not from a sense of duty, but with the same attitude that you would have if you're in the garden, or if you, snuggling with your dog or whatever. That's just, you do what you do, and you're just happy to see that's being received. So that's the important practice. Understand also that your state and where you place your mind decides what you see. So when you are in stress and fear, you will be looking for the enemy. You will be looking for whatever is stopping you from your own survival and your own needs. So just try to see that person, and then see someone who's in love. In the exact same position. That person will see everything through those lenses of love, and everything is wonderful, and everyone's, a wonderful person. They're smiling, and life is beautiful, and everything is positive and optimistic, right? It's your own mindset. This is why it's so important to fill yourself with love first, instead of seeking it in the world. So the practice is stop seeking it in the world. Bring it. It's perhaps the most important practice, because again, we're so used to wanting to be in the receiving end. And when everyone expects someone else to give to them, it's like we all end up poor. Bring it. Channel it. And try to behave as if you are in love. You can love everyone and everything because it is not conditional. It's not like they have to deserve it first. There is not a single being or a single manifestation in existence that does not need love. Right? So even when you're by yourself, you can love your furniture, you can love your plants, you can love your home, you can love air, you can love the sun, you can love the concept of where you live, you can love your neighborhood, you can love everything all the time. You can love the food you're eating. So practice that. Practice to bring love. And I said, the more you try to stay in these states, the more you will understand what it is. Because it's so easy, of course, that we go into, am I doing it right? Is this the right? Just whatever it is. Whatever type of energy that you associate with love is far better than none of it, right? So even the most selfish love is better than no love. You can't go wrong. Every variation of love will bring you closer to it, right? So practice bringing it. Now, try to look at the different aspects of love, and this is another practice. And try to imagine, if you are the most loving person in the world, what type of behavior would you see? to try to imagine that and try to tune into how a loving person behaves. And some keywords are, of course, respect. That's an important part of love. When you're in a state of love, you respect other people because you respect their boundaries. You respect who they are already, and you show it. So you try to be respectful. You show kindness. Being kind is also part of love, or it's a natural sign that you're in a state of love if you are truly kind. Generosity, that natural giving. And giving, that can also be listening. It could be, whatever we give. But it's a giving attitude because you already have everything. And when we have everything, we let go of the transactional part of life. We feel that it's flowing through us. So it's easy to be generous. We include. So inclusivity in all sorts of ways are important. Like we reach out, we embrace, we include, because we're looking for ways to make people feel that they're seen, that they're loved, and that they're connected, because we feel a state of connectedness. And we therefore also feel that other people are kind of part of life the same way we are. So when we see someone who does not experience connectedness, it's natural that we want to connect and help them experience connectedness. It's also gratitude. Practicing gratitude is important to open the heart. And I've talked about this before, that gratitude, when they have, like when researchers have seen the greatest effect on the heart and the greatest effect on the brain, it is what humans experience as gratitude. When it comes to the balance and harmony between heart and brain, gratitude is the state and the mindset that affects your experience of love more than anything. And one reason for that is that when we see everything as a gift, we also move our interaction with life from the transactional state. It removes it from, I need this, or I demand this, or I expect this. When you receive something as a gift, it's clear that you didn't have any expectations. You didn't have a list of demands. And you don't look at it as, well, it's not exactly what I wanted, because you have no projections of that. You are you, you're in a world, and you breathe, and you share, and you receive. And you receive whatever nature is giving. Right? So gratitude is important, and really practicing it and trying to see when things happen, to see them as gifts. Right? Especially when things we don't like happen, also see those as gifts. Because the loving perspective is understanding that the only reason why anything happens is to promote your growth and your healing and your love. And then you will receive it as a gift. So practicing gratitude in every possible way is important. Now, another quality is listening. So listening to people. And it means letting others speak, but not just, whatever they say. Try to listen beyond their words. Try to connect with what is it they are expressing? Where is it coming from? What are the true needs? How can I contribute? That's listening. Often when people listen to today, it's more about letting someone else talk so I can say my part. That's not listening. So most people today are in monologues. They just need other people to finish so they can speak, and then we don't remember. So what other people are saying, because we don't care. This is also why we then communicate on very superficial levels. Because when nobody's listening and we're all talking, there's no connectedness. So listening will also bring us into greater state of connectedness. I'll just go through this list of behaviors that you can practice. Sharing, which is also part of being generous. But sharing also means showing yourself, right? When we are in a state of love, we have nothing to hide. We can show our feelings, our state, because we're not blaming anyone and we don't want anything. And then it's easy to be honest, right? It's just we are who we are in this world, and we're showing other people what's going on so they can relate. But because we're not transactional, we don't have to play a game. We don't have to be in this kind of theater of manipulation, right? It just relaxes. So sharing may be both on the generous side, but also sharing simply, what is truth in us. Selflessness is also important. It's understanding that being in connectedness, meaning that our own self-interest becomes less important. We act from we more than I. So seeking the we-ness, trying to be in states where you can work together with others and where you harmonize, where you just try to see, what happens when we understand that we're part of the same organism, that we're part of the same life, and that we're equally important. So selflessness is not trying to pretend you don't exist. It's selflessness. So it's having a more healthy perspective of the balance between you and others. Understanding that you don't always have to be the main character. We all are. And that we have access to all these main characters are fascinating, because it means other people also carry something that we have yet to learn, right? And it's just, getting a more healthy perspective. I think also making other people feel seen, making them feel valuable, especially as a starting point for connectedness. Because people have a real thirst for someone to see them. Most people today feel completely invisible. And I've worked with a lot of really kind of famous people, and most of them feel invisible. Fame doesn't help, because they're not seen. They become something that fans or media relate to, but it's not them. Right? So even when we get all this attention, we can still feel completely invisible. But seeing is the same as listening. It's being there and being present to someone and for them, right? And moving out of your own monologue and moving to the state of sharing, right? So that's also qualities of love. Taking initiative is like embracing, taking the first step. When you feel insecure, you want someone to come, come here, I'll take care of you. It's that. Be that person. Practicing that. Take initiative. Try to see and connect with, not just the needs of other people, but be someone they can relate to. Represent connectedness and be active in trying to connect. So it's then also caring about other people's well-being, like caring about them. If you treat everyone like family, how would you behave? If you loved everyone the way you love your kids, for instance, or your pets, or whatever you love the most, or your partner, how would you behave? Because we all matter. Right? So these are just examples of characteristics and behaviors that you can look into that are all aspects of love. Because we have to practice, and we have to practice being people of love in real life. I've talked about this a lot, but I'm so tired of often what we find in modern spirituality where like we sit by ourselves and we're so filled with this and so in contact with this, and then you go into life with nothing, right? Talk about being self-centered. If what we do spiritually carries any value at all, it only shows in how we impact, people around us, how we impact the world. That we're making a difference in a way we would not if we're not involved with spiritual work. We have to show other people love. Did you have a question?
Yes. So we got a question, and we've talked about this in other teachings as well, but that in a way, we can't truly give something that we're unable to receive ourselves. And so the question arises about addressing specifically how to receive love, both from other people and other beings, but also spiritual beings, and love from life itself or from oneness.
Love is different in the way that when you fill yourself with it, it becomes part of how you behave, who you are. Love is in many ways giving and receiving at the same time. It's that kind of seamless connectedness with everything. So, how to receive love from others means that you have to fill yourself with it first. It's kind of like a sponge. For a sponge to be able to absorb water, you first have to let it absorb water. If you first have to wet it and just squeeze, then it can absorb. It's kind of like that. You need to fill yourself with love before you are able to receive it. And when you're filled with love, you don't care who's giving, who's receiving, because you recognize the state of love. And you just behave from there. So we always have to start with unconditional love. It balances all the different kind of variations of conditional love, and we will be as a more seamless in how we approach the conditional types. Now, one other practice is, and this has become more popular, but I think it's an important one, is, as we have the genetic love language that is more collective, find your individual love language. And, if you're not familiar with it, it is finding how do you express love naturally. It can be in a relationship, for instance. People may have different ways to show their love and appreciation, right? And it's important that we learn and understand what our language is. For some people, it may be conversation, right? That's where they, show their love by listening, by giving advice. For some people, it could be cooking, For some, physical touch. For some, taking walks. For some people, it could be again, caring for them. For some, it could be, cleaning the house. For other people, it could be like surprises, small gifts. There are so many different ways we show love when we're with someone. And it's important that we become aware of our natural go-tos as the one we are in this lifetime, and natural ways of expressing love. Because it may be different from each and every one of us. But become really good at it. Most people will have at least 3 or 4 ways where they can also see in their past that, when there are any kind of situation or space of love, this is what I do more. This is how I like to express my appreciation. So if you're not aware of it, try to figure it out. Test things out. Some people may be excellent they love giving little gifts, but maybe if you try to, you'll find it's embarrassing and weird. then don't do it. Do what comes natural to you, right? And get good at it. And also when you're with someone, learn their love language. So you can also understand, oh, when my partner's doing this, that's one way that he or she expresses love. And then you can be even more appreciative because you understand that these are the expressions, right? These are the natural ways for this person to show love, instead of you having expectations of love being shown in a specific way because that's what you need. Love is what should be important, not the symbols. And this is, again, what we need to train ourselves to do. It is about love and connectedness, not the symbols. So when you can receive what someone's doing through their love language and you understand this is coming from love, you will connect with their love through their chosen expression. And when you then understand each other's expressions, then it's more seamless. It can be so frustrating. I've seen this for many couples that they don't understand each other's love language. And one person may have, tried to express their love in a certain way, and then the other person feel that you never show me love, because the other person expects it to be shown in their love language because they think that is universal. Of course it's not. So, but try to have, conscious communications around this and try to figure out for yourself and bring it into the conversation in a relationship, because it makes it easier. But even when you're not in a relationship, bring this to people, right? Because it also means that when you do this thing, it means that you also know that this is how I like to express my love, which means it's easier to be generous, right? It's easier to be happy when doing it. And you will definitely not, when you're in your love language, you normally don't go into that, again, sacrifice thing, right? You can do it from happiness, and you can be generous, and you can, let other people experience you. Because it's also through a love language that we often let people get to know us, because we feel that, yeah, this is me. This is who I am, right? So it's a way for you also to practice being a loving person. And this is what we're talking about today. Yet another thing is, and this is difficult, and it's very easy. Learn to love everything. And it's back to us as it's not a reaction. It's not based on anyone deserving. That's part of the transactional stuff in the horizontal. Divine love is a state of consciousness where simply love. And when you understand that there is nothing one can do to deserve love or not deserve love or this or that, it's not part of the horizontal and the conditional stuff. It simply means that when something exists, it should be loved. In a higher state of consciousness, that is what you do. That is really kind of the only superpower you will ever get spiritually, is your ability to love gets stronger. For no reason at all. You just love because that's what you do. And you see other people as an opportunity to give love, because you don't want anything, you don't seek anything, you don't need anything. But you also understand that the love you channel is the universal nutrient. It's the natural kind of fertilizer of everything, and that's what you do. No matter how people behave, and of course you see when people are in the midst of their karmic conflicts, well, that may be when they needed them the most. So when people are at their worst behavior, maybe that's when you love them even more, because you can see what they're trying to achieve. Because you don't want anything. That is what happens to you when you fill yourself with love for real. you will actively feel that everything is available to you, that you have everything, that everything has already been given. And just like when you are in love with someone, you just want to give, and you realize that giving is receiving. And that's also a cliche, but it's true. Often when someone gives a gift to someone, it's more exciting for the person giving the gift than the person receiving, right? So even in our transactional horizontal ways, we realize this. So when we give from the heart, we're filled with love. Right? This is also why when we close the heart and we feel that we're in this Hunger Games, right? We fight for survival, we fight for emotional survival, we're all in competition, we're all hated, like all of that. And yet, we're all looking for love. And when we're in a state of disconnect, in the brain, in our bodies, our natural spiritual connection will be gone. And this is why we try to look for it in the world, because we know it's somewhere. But we don't understand that it's within. Right? And that's what we need to practice. It's the only solution. And you already have a heart. It's just a matter of opening it more and activating it in whatever way you can possibly think of. And also, yet another practice is, be the person you want to be with. Like, try to look at yourself from the outside and try to be a more loving person. Based on also what we've been talking about today, like what you can practice. What does a loving person do? What is the behavior? What are the attitudes? And try to be more of that. And try to feel love while doing it. And so it's a practice. You need to build these muscles. You need to build, a stronger heart. I think it's wonderful whenever I meet individuals. It doesn't matter what, path they're on. I've met wonderful, loving individuals in religions, where their heart is open, not because of their religion, but they've used their religion and they've practiced and they've learned. They've had the attitude and insight, and their heart is completely open and they're so loving. And you find them in all religions. You can also find people with hearts completely closed in all religions. So, back to, it's not something in the outer world that will make you love. It's when love becomes a goal. And that's what you see in all these people in different religions and paths, where the heart is truly open. It's because that's what they've been aiming for. And the way they've done it, and everything we've been talking about, these different practices, that is a service, often what we refer to as divine service. It is you being a vehicle for something greater than you. That is what you naturally become in a state of connectedness, right? Back to even being a human in a small tribe or in a small community, right? Where everyone has to work together in order to survive. And you do, what you need, but you do more than that because you love your community, you love the other people, and you are there for them. So you're stretched beyond what's necessary because you want to show them that you love them. So we have it in us also as humans that belonging or doing, something that belongs to something greater than us. That is how we feel fulfilled. that will always open the heart. Self-centeredness, in no matter what way it is expressing itself, when it's about you, you will always close the heart. And because it closes the heart, then you need confirmation, then you become entitled, and all of that. So, being part of something greater than you, living for something greater than you, this is also what people find to be purpose. When people look for purpose, it's the greater journey, right? It's what's greater than us. And you look at throughout human history, humans have always been looking for that. And sometimes people find it in religion, sometimes in politics, sometimes in whatever they do. But being part of something greater than themselves. So for some people that can be having children, right? Bring up a family. Doing something that you feel is important for the world beyond your own self-interest. That opens the heart. And the state of love is always beyond you. It's you being part of something greater, behaving as part of something greater. So you are not behaving just as you. You're behaving as the greater through you. It always opens the heart. This is, again, also the state of purpose, and we all know it. Whenever you've been part of something greater than you, it flips a switch. You feel a purpose. You feel that you're doing something important. We all seek this naturally. But with our current civilization, because of all this stress and everything, where the heart closes and we begin to self-medicate and behaving like extremely self-centered beings fighting for our lives, we lose a sense of purpose too, which means we're trying to find it outside of us, trying to find the thing that what's my thing, right? What can I do to make me feel purpose? And often when people come to me, they ask me that, they want me to tell them the thing they can do that will make them feel purpose. And my answer is always, purpose is when you behave and do and contribute in ways beyond you. But because we're so out of balance, we're looking for that one thing that will make us feel. It starts from within, right? But for all of you, be part of something greater than you. Behave from what is greater than you. As if that can just be taking care of your family. It can be many things. But moving beyond self-centeredness opens the heart. It heals you. When you do something for someone, it does something with you. Even when you feel your heart is closed, for that moment, it will be more open. And as I said, we have to practice, 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 practice. Most people today are hurt. They're damaged. They're injured emotionally, mentally, physically. We have to practice. And involved in spiritual work, we have the responsibility to show the example. We have to practice becoming more loving people, showing it to other people, being a kind of beacon of light and love in the world, to inspire them, to uplift, to heal. There is never a situation where love is not the answer. And we have to learn to be that, because it means that whatever people are seeking, they will find it through us. Because every single question will at some point be answered with love. But because of the state of the world, people are looking. They're searching. And they have no idea that it's already in them. And they have no idea how to get there. We have to activate the heart. And it comes back to spiritual practices. We all need spiritual practices because being human today will not necessarily bring us to a place of healing or spiritual growth or love. But with spiritual practices, we may aim for that higher consciousness. We may aim for love. We may aim for purpose and also practice how we do it and becoming more of that person. So that is also necessary if you want to become a more loving person. You need to tune your instrument. You need to open yourself up and practice what it means for love to flow through. It's not difficult. But many people, when they're so stressed and afraid, they feel they don't find time to sit down and meditate because they can't sit still, which is exactly why we need to do it. And if you don't know how to meditate, you find it very difficult, just try to sit down and just think of loving things, right? Think of experiences that have opened your heart. Think of people you love and look at why you love them and try to feel that love, right? Use your experiences, then just tune in and try to feel that love and be in it and just try to let it kind of, work its way in you and through you. And then in life, just try to be a more loving person. So practice what we've been talking about today. The state of love is unconditional. And you will never spiritually heal until love has taken over. That is the healer. And it means when love flows through you, you will heal. It's all in you. But don't believe for a second that becoming more loving will just happen today. What happens by itself is all of us becoming more afraid, more anxious, more stressed, that we hate, that we become more binary. That is what's happening. So we have to work at it. So work at it together. Be more aware. Practice the heart and understand that the more you focus on it, the more you imagine love flowing through, the more practice loving and being a loving person and doing all of these things that are associated with love, your brain will change. Your energy will change. How people respond to you will change. And practice this connectedness with everyone and everything. And over time, you will realize that this love is a specific consciousness, specific energy. And it will begin to flow through even when you're not aware of it, even when you're not focusing on it. When you are in a state of spiritual health and balance, your natural state is love just flowing through. That's a sign that you are in balance and harmony. So a balanced being, a balanced individual, the love will just be there and it will just flow. So that should be your kind of goal. It should be your natural state, and understand that when you've dealt with your karma, when you're doing the spiritual work, the love cannot be stopped. It will flow naturally through you 24/7. And the more you go into the deeper spiritual work, that love will increase and it will take over. And it means all your problems will be gone. All your issues will be gone. All your stories of need will be gone. You will not seek anything. You will not want anything. But you will have everything to give. And you will be a presence of healing. of love, of divine truth. And it will just happen. And this is what the world needs. The more full, the more whole you are, you will, as a channel, as a vehicle, be part of lifting this world every second, every minute, every hour, every day. Not just based on when you're focusing on it, but it will just be something that you can't even stop. But you have to practice in order to get there. So make a commitment this year. When you see the state of this planet, when you see everything that's happening in our civilization, we can all agree that we need more love. So practice becoming a better vehicle. Practice becoming an agent of divine love in the world. And then go out in the world and make a difference. Okay. Andy can't connect right now, so he wants me to sign off. So we'll just thank you for watching. And, in whatever way you can, bring this to other people. Practice and help each other becoming agents of good in the world. Help each other becoming agents of love. So try to, share this work with others and spread it. And, we'll be back with a new topic in about 4 weeks' time. So see you then.